Welcome to Sissy Fantasy World, where every story sparkles. Don't forget to subscribe for more magic. I still remember the exact moment I realized my life would never be the same. It wasn't a scream or a fight. It was the quiet, almost imperceptible way my mom slid a small box across the table toward me. I looked at it and thought it was a gift, like any other, but the soft pastel colors and delicate ribbons whispered something different, something I wasn't prepared to hear. "You've always been so beautiful, sweetheart," she said, her voice unusually tender, almost trembling. "I just think it's time we let the world see it too." I froze, staring at the box. Inside lay a carefully folded outfit, soft pink, lacy, almost fragile, and a small pair of ballet flats. My pulse quickened. I didn't understand why my chest felt tight, why my stomach churned, why my hands shook when I reached out. "It's a dress," I whispered. "Yes," she said, smiling, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "For my little girl." My mind recoiled. "You're what?" She didn't answer immediately. She just looked at me, the quiet strength in her gaze both terrifying and strangely comforting. And that's when I felt it, the first stirrings of something I'd been denying for years. Confusion, fear, curiosity, a longing I didn't have words for. I wanted to refuse. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream that this wasn't me. But at the same time, I couldn't stop looking at the delicate fabric, at the way it seemed to call to something inside me I hadn't dared to admit existed. "You don't have to do anything you don't want," she said softly. "But I think you'll like this. I think you'll love it." Her words hung in the air like sunlight through fog. I didn't know whether to trust them or flee. But my hand moved almost on its own, brushing the soft material between my fingers. It felt right, wrong, exciting, terrifying. That evening, I tried it on. Every stitch, every ribbon, every gentle sway of the skirt against my legs felt like a revelation and a betrayal. My reflection in the mirror startled me. The face staring back wasn't just mine anymore. It was softer, more open, more feminine, and yet it was undeniably me. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to deny what I saw. I didn't know which emotion came first. Mom knelt beside me, adjusting the straps gently, her hands warm on my shoulders. "You're beautiful," she whispered, "more beautiful than I ever imagined." And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure if I wanted to agree, or if I was afraid to. The reflection in the mirror seemed to wink at me, teasing, promising, challenging. And deep inside, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, I woke with the dress still folded neatly on my chair. My stomach twisted at the thought of putting it on again. Every instinct told me to hide it, to pretend I hadn't touched it yesterday, to retreat into the familiar safety of my old clothes. But there was something in me that wouldn't let me look away. Mom was in the kitchen when I walked down, her expression calm, almost serene, like she'd been expecting me. She didn't scold me for lingering by the doorway. She didn't push. She just smiled, that soft, unwavering smile that made my heart both ache and race. "Do you want to try it again?" she asked. I hesitated. I don't know if I can." "You can," she said simply. "No one's judging, no one's forcing, just see what it feels like." Her words were dangerous, comforting, tempting. I found myself nodding almost involuntarily. The fabric felt softer in my hands this time, almost alive. Sliding it over my head, letting the skirt fall gently, I felt a strange liberation, as though a part of me I'd always ignored was finally breathing. Mom stepped back, hands clasped, her eyes glistening with pride. "You don't have to look perfect," she said. "You just have to be you." I stared at the mirror. My reflection made my chest tighten, not with fear this time, but with curiosity. The boy I had been yesterday felt distant, almost like a memory. The girl in the mirror, delicate, shy, hesitant, looked back at me with a quiet intensity I hadn't seen in myself. "Do you like it?" Mom asked softly, as if sensing the swirl of emotions inside me. I think so," I whispered. The words sounded foreign, fragile, and undeniably true. She walked toward me and rested her hand lightly on my shoulder. "This isn't just about a dress," she said. "It's about letting yourself feel what you've been holding inside, about letting yourself exist." Exist. That word settled in my chest like a spark. My pulse jumped. Could it really be that simple, that terrifying, that exhilarating? Later at school, the world seemed unchanged, yet I felt like a secret I had been hiding was somehow leaking into every glance, every whisper. I caught my reflection in the glass of the classroom window and froze. The skirt swayed lightly, my hair felt softer, my features subtly shifted. No one noticed, but I did. Every step home that afternoon felt like walking through two realities at once. The world that expected me to be who I had always been, and the one in which I was learning, almost unwillingly, who I could be. Mom greeted me at the door, smiling like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. She didn't ask about my day. She didn't pressure. She just handed me a small hairbrush. "Shall we try the next step?" she said, her eyes twinkling. I nodded, heart pounding. Somewhere deep inside, a part of me, terrified, hesitant, but undeniably curious, wanted to see where this would go. And in that moment, I realized the journey wasn't just about clothes. It was about me, and me was changing, whether I was ready or not. That evening, the house felt quieter than usual, almost like it was holding its breath, waiting for me. I sat on my bed, the soft pink dress I had worn earlier still folded neatly beside me, the delicate fabric faintly scented with something floral, almost like a memory. My reflection in the mirror seemed to call to me, and I didn't know whether to reach for the dress or look away. Part of me wanted to run, part of me wanted to hide, and yet another part, one I barely recognized, wanted to step closer, to touch it, to see who I might become. Mom came in silently, her presence calm and steady. She didn't rush me or lecture me. She just knelt beside me, folding her hands gently. "It's okay to feel scared," she said, her voice soft but unwavering. "It's okay to feel curious. It's okay to feel both at once." I swallowed hard. I didn't want to speak. Words felt heavy, tangled up with every emotion I had been suppressing for years. Instead, I let my eyes wander to the dress again, and my fingers brushed the fabric almost involuntarily. It was soft, silky, and delicate, so different from the clothes I had always worn, yet somehow familiar, almost like it had been waiting for me. Mom watched me, saying nothing for a long while. Then, slowly, she said, "Do you want to try it on again? Not because I want you to, but because I think it might show you something about yourself." I hesitated. My pulse thundered in my ears. I don't know if I can," I whispered, my voice shaking. Fear and excitement twisted inside me like two currents pulling me in opposite directions. "You can," she said gently. "No pressure, just try. Only if you want to, only if it feels right." The way she said it, calm, patient, unwavering, made my chest tighten. Something deep inside me stirred, something I had been ignoring for so long, a longing to see myself in a way I had never allowed. Slowly, almost cautiously, I picked up the dress. The fabric felt alive under my fingers. Every ribbon, every fold seemed to hum with possibility. I slipped it over my head. The soft material glided against my skin, brushing my shoulders, falling in gentle folds around my legs. My reflection in the mirror startled me. It wasn't just a dress. It was a revelation. The girl staring back at me, fragile, uncertain, beautiful, was undeniably me, but also someone I had never met before. I felt an odd mixture of fear and longing. Mom stepped closer, her hands warm on my shoulders. "You're beautiful," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "more beautiful than I ever imagined." I didn't know what to say. Could I believe her? Could I believe what I was seeing? My hands trembled, brushing the fabric against my thighs, feeling the gentle weight of it. I felt exposed. I felt vulnerable. I felt alive. Over the next few days, this became a rhythm, a careful exploration of self I didn't know I was capable of. Every morning, I woke with that same mix of dread and anticipation. Every glance in the mirror left me unsettled, confused, and inexplicably drawn to what I saw. My features were softer in the reflection. My hair fell differently. Even my posture changed slightly, the way my shoulders sloped and my chest shifted under the fabric. Mom guided me through it all, not as a teacher or a commander, but as someone gently opening a door I had kept closed. She showed me how to brush my hair in a way that framed my face, how to pick colors that complemented my features, how to carry myself without trying to be anyone other than myself. Each small step was terrifying and exhilarating. I noticed changes in how I felt inside. My thoughts were louder, more insistent. I questioned everything I had known about myself. Was I supposed to feel this way? Was this real? Or was I just pretending to please Mom? And yet, when I caught my reflection after she left the room, there was a quiet thrill in seeing her face. My face, looking back at me, soft and open, almost pleading to be recognized. School became its own challenge. Walking through the hallways, wearing normal clothes, I felt different. The reflection in the glass windows sometimes caught me, and I would freeze, seeing the subtle changes in my posture, my expression. A strange longing to be that girl in the mirror gnawed at me. I wanted to hide it. I wanted to deny it. But the desire persisted, pressing against every rule I had made for myself. One evening, Mom brought me a small box of accessories, hairpins, a soft scarf, pastel socks. "Try these," she said, her tone gentle but encouraging. "See how they feel. You don't have to like it, but let yourself explore." I hesitated. Then, slowly, I reached for a hairpin, sliding it into my hair. The simple act felt monumental. It felt like permission. The mirror caught my eyes widening in surprise at the subtle transformation. The girl I was becoming wasn't just in clothes or accessories. She was in my posture, in my expression, in the way I carried myself. I wanted to smile, but I was afraid to. I wanted to laugh, but it sounded wrong in my throat. Instead, I just breathed, letting the feelings wash over me. Fear, excitement, curiosity, longing, confusion, and deep down an unspoken thrill that maybe, just maybe, I was finally finding a version of myself I had never dared to imagine. And in that quiet, fragile moment, I understood something terrifying. The journey wasn't about dresses or hairpins or shoes. It was about me, about facing myself, about letting the person I had hidden for so long finally exist. The days blurred into a strange rhythm, each one heavier than the last, each one charged with an intensity I didn't understand. Every morning, I woke with the faint memory of the pink dress pressed against my skin, the soft ribbon brushing my shoulders, and my chest tightened with anticipation and fear. I didn't know who I was anymore, and yet, every fiber of my being whispered that I was discovering someone I had been avoiding my entire life. Mom didn't rush me. She was patient, almost impossibly so, but her eyes, those unwavering, tender eyes, always seemed to pierce right through the walls I had built around myself. She never forced me, never demanded obedience, yet every suggestion, every gentle touch, felt like a key turning in a lock I had forgotten I owned. One afternoon, she brought a small compact mirror and placed it on the bed. "Sit," she said softly, her voice calm but insistent. "I want you to look at yourself, really look." I hesitated, my throat tight, my hands clammy. Fear and curiosity collided inside me, a storm I couldn't contain. My reflection in the large bedroom mirror had become familiar, yet foreign. The subtle curves of my cheeks, the softening of my jawline, the faint shimmer of the hairbrush she had taught me to use, all of it was a revelation and a threat at the same time. I stammered, unable to find words. "I don't know if I can." "You can," she said, kneeling beside me, her hand brushing mine lightly. "I know you can. You've already taken steps you didn't know you could. Look at yourself. Not as a boy, not as someone forced, but as who you might be, if you allowed it." Her words were dangerous, comforting, terrifying. I reached for the compact mirror, my fingers trembling. I held it in front of my face and froze. The eyes staring back weren't mine, not entirely. They were softer, wider, questioning, vulnerable, alive. "What if I like her?" I whispered. The words felt impossible, taboo, and utterly honest. Mom's hand rested on my shoulder, steady and warm. "Then you do," she said. "You're allowed to like her. You're allowed to explore her. You're allowed to be her if you choose. You just have to be willing to see her." I closed my eyes. Willing? I didn't know if I could. The fear of losing myself battled against the strange exhilaration of discovering someone new. My heartbeat thundered. Every instinct told me to flee, and yet I couldn't look away. Over the next week, we explored small steps. Soft scarves draped around my neck, delicate hairpins in my hair, pastel socks against my ankles. Each accessory felt monumental. Each one was a tiny act of permission, a statement that maybe the person I was becoming, Aaliyah, I thought her name might be even then, was allowed to exist. The most unsettling change, though, wasn't visible. It was internal. Every glance in the mirror, every small step into softness, every reflection of myself in the sunlight streaming through the window made me confront a truth I had been hiding. I was falling in love with her. Not a romantic love, not even fully conscious yet, but a recognition, a longing, a fierce protective instinct for the person I saw in the reflection. School became a battlefield. I wore my usual clothes, but the awareness of her, the emerging Aaliyah, lurked behind my eyes. Every window, every polished surface, every glance in a mirror made me flinch, freeze, or avert my gaze. The world didn't see her. Only I did. Only I felt her. And every day, the more I acknowledged her presence, the more urgent and alive she became. One evening, Mom placed a small box on my desk. She didn't say a word. She just gestured for me to open it. Inside lay delicate jewelry, tiny earrings, a bracelet almost translucent in its delicacy, a soft necklace that sparkled faintly in the lamplight. My breath caught in my throat. The objects weren't loud. They weren't commanding. They didn't demand that I change. And yet their very presence carried an almost sacred weight. "Do you want to try them?" she asked softly, watching me with that unshakable calm. I hesitated, and then slowly I reached for the earrings. Sliding them on felt like a confession, a promise to someone I didn't fully know yet. My reflection shifted subtly, the soft sparkle of the jewelry illuminating the emerging curves and angles of a face I was learning to recognize. The mirror wasn't just glass. It was a doorway, a warning, a challenge, a revelation. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to hide, to flee. But I couldn't. The reflection staring back demanded acknowledgement. And as I touched the delicate jewelry, feeling the cool metal against my skin, I realized something terrifying and exhilarating. The girl in the mirror wasn't going away. She was here. And maybe I was ready to stop running. Mom knelt beside me, brushing my hair lightly behind my ear. "Every day a little closer," she whispered. "No rush, no judgment, just truth." I swallowed hard, letting the words sink deep into my chest. She wasn't forcing me. She wasn't asking me to choose yet. She was only opening the path, lighting the way, showing me that someone inside me had been waiting to be seen. And for the first time in my life, I thought I could step forward. That night the house was quiet, but the silence felt alive, almost expectant. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, the soft hum of the night around me, my thoughts tangled in a way they never had been before. Every flicker of memory, every trace of fear and excitement from the past days pressed against my chest like a wave I could not escape. Mom had left the room moments ago, but her presence lingered. Her warmth, her patience, her unwavering acceptance. It was comforting. It was terrifying. I reached for the dress again, the pink fabric soft under my fingers. I couldn't stop thinking about the reflection I had seen in the mirror earlier that day, the subtle shift of my features, the delicate softness of my hair falling over my shoulders, the eyes that seemed to plead for recognition. It wasn't just the dress. It wasn't just the jewelry, the hairpins, or the scarves. It was me. Or rather, the part of me I had been hiding, ignoring, even denying. I pulled the dress over my head. The silk slid against my skin like a whisper, caressing my shoulders, swaying gently as I moved. I stared into the mirror, hesitant, breath caught in my throat. The girl I saw wasn't just a reflection anymore. She was alive, palpable, undeniable. Her eyes were wider, softer, questioning, and strangely knowing. I reached up, brushing a strand of hair away from her face, and it felt like touching someone I had been waiting to meet for years. Mom appeared in the doorway, silent, her expression unreadable but tender. She didn't rush in. She didn't lecture or guide at first. She simply watched, letting me breathe, letting me meet myself. After a long moment, she said softly, "Do you feel her?" I froze. Feel her? "Yes," she whispered. "The person you've been hiding, the person you've been afraid to meet. Aaliyah." Her voice lingered, a gentle weight that pressed against my chest. The name felt foreign and familiar all at once, a delicate truth I wasn't ready to fully acknowledge. Tears stung my eyes, though I wasn't sure if they were from fear, excitement, or relief. I don't know if I can," I murmured. My voice trembled, caught between desperation and longing. Mom stepped closer, her hand brushing my cheek lightly. "You don't have to be ready," she said. You only have to be willing to see her. Willing, that word burned into me. My chest tightened. My pulse raced. Part of me wanted to flee, to tear the dress off and hide under the safety of my old life. But another part, fragile, insistent, trembling, wanted to step closer, to meet the girl in the mirror without shame, without fear, without excuses. I took a shaky breath and adjusted the dress, feeling the soft fabric swirl around my legs. The mirror reflected her again, Aaliyah, the name whispered in my mind like a promise. Her lips pressed together, tentative, almost shy. Her eyes, my eyes, searched mine for permission. Mom knelt beside me. "Would you like to try the next step?" she asked softly. I nodded before I realized it. My hands shook as she brought out a small brush and a palette of subtle, warm colors. "Just a touch," she said. "Nothing drastic, just to see, to explore." The brush felt alive against my skin, almost as if it was teaching me something I had never learned about myself. Each stroke softened my features, emphasized the subtle curve of my cheekbones, the arch of my brow. My reflection was no longer just a boy in a pink dress. She was fully emerging, vulnerable, tentative, beautiful. My breath caught. I look different," I whispered, voice barely audible. Mom smiled, her eyes glistening. "You don't look different. You look like yourself, finally." Aaliyah felt so real in that moment that I wanted to reach out, to embrace her, to acknowledge her existence. The dress, the hairpins, the soft makeup, they weren't what made me her. It was the way I felt, the way I breathed, the way my heart recognized someone I had been too afraid to meet. For the first time, I realized that I wasn't just transforming externally. I was transforming internally. Every movement, every glance in the mirror, every soft whisper from Mom pulled me closer to understanding myself. The fear that had haunted me since childhood, the fear of being different, of disappointing, of losing myself, was still there, but it was no longer suffocating. It was just a shadow beside a growing light. Hours passed. I practiced walking, sitting, turning, simple movements, but each one felt monumental. Mom watched silently, correcting a tilt of my shoulder, a way my fingers rested against the fabric, a slight slump I hadn't noticed. It wasn't criticism. It was guidance, a gentle shaping of someone who was becoming fully aware of herself. When the day finally ended, I sat on my bed, exhausted, trembling, and exhilarated all at once. The reflection in the mirror was breathtaking, not because it was perfect, but because it was honest. Aaliyah was real. She was me, and I was learning how to live as her. Mom knelt beside me one last time before leaving the room. "Remember," she whispered, "you don't have to have all the answers today. You only have to keep taking steps toward her, toward yourself. That's enough." I nodded, pressing my fingers against my lips. The soft hum of the night wrapped around me. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. I didn't know if anyone else would ever understand this transformation. But one truth had settled in me so completely, so terrifyingly. Aaliyah existed. And for the first time, I wanted to meet her without fear. The next morning, the sunlight spilled through the curtains, soft and golden, painting the room in a warmth that felt both tender and terrifying. I lay in bed longer than usual, listening to the subtle creaks of the house waking up around me. My reflection lingered in my mind, the girl I had seen yesterday in the mirror, her eyes searching mine, her expression a mixture of vulnerability, curiosity, and quiet courage. I wasn't ready to speak to her yet. I wasn't ready to admit that she was becoming real, but I couldn't look away. Mom knocked softly before entering, her presence calm and unhurried. "Good morning," she said, her voice carrying the weight of care and encouragement all at once. She didn't rush me, didn't demand that I get up. She simply stood there, letting me adjust to the idea that today, like yesterday, would be a day of discovery. I sat up slowly, tugging at the soft pink dress folded neatly at the foot of my bed. Each fold of fabric seemed to hum beneath my fingers, as though it had a life of its own. Sliding it over my shoulders, I felt the familiar shiver of anticipation and fear, the thrill and the dread twisting together like two currents pulling me in opposite directions. The fabric brushed softly against my skin, comforting and alien at the same time. Mom knelt beside me, her hands brushing mine as she adjusted a stray lock of hair. "You don't have to rush," she said softly. "Take your time with her, with yourself. Every step is important." The mirror reflected her words as much as it reflected me. Aaliyah was emerging more clearly now. The curves of my cheeks softened, my lips fuller, my eyes wider and more expressive. Even the way I held myself, tentative yet unsteady, suggested something new, something fragile yet undeniable. I reached up to touch my hair, trailing my fingers along the soft waves, and it felt like tracing the outline of someone I had been avoiding for years. Breakfast that morning was a quiet affair. Mom didn't push me to wear anything out of the ordinary, but I noticed the way her eyes lingered on me when I walked past the kitchen, how she seemed to watch for small signs, subtle hints of transformation in my posture, the tilt of my chin, the flicker of awareness in my eyes. School was the next hurdle. I had dressed in casual clothes, afraid to step fully into Aaliyah outside the walls of my home. Yet with every mirror, every reflective surface I passed, I felt her presence, the quiet insistence of a girl I was learning to accept. The hallways were full of familiar faces, voices, and expectations. No one noticed, of course. The world hadn't changed, but I had. And that made everything feel surreal, almost like I was walking through life as a stranger in my own skin. In the cafeteria, I caught myself glancing at my reflection in the shiny window, seeing the subtle changes in my expression and posture. I wanted to hide. I wanted to flee. Yet there was a thrill there, too, a recognition that I couldn't explain. Aaliyah was alive and the world hadn't seen her yet. That made me both terrified and exhilarated. When I returned home, Mom was waiting with a small box. "I thought we could try something new today," she said, her smile soft but confident. Inside were delicate jewelry pieces, tiny earrings, a thin bracelet, and a subtle hair clip that shimmered in the afternoon sunlight. The simplicity of them, their delicate nature, made my heart race. "Try them," she said. "Just to see how it feels. You don't have to like it, you just have to explore." I hesitated, but curiosity, that insistent, undeniable part of me, overrode my fear. I slid the earrings into place, feeling the cool metal brush against my ears. The hair clip followed, tucked gently into my soft waves. I stared at the mirror. The reflection was no longer just a tentative glimpse. Aaliyah was asserting herself. Her presence filled the room, soft yet commanding, shy yet insistent. Mom knelt beside me, her hand brushing my hair back. "Do you see her?" she whispered. "Yes," I breathed. The word felt like a confession, a promise, a revelation. "I see her. I feel her." Mom smiled, eyes glistening. "Then let her breathe. Let her grow. You don't have to rush, but you also don't have to hide." The evening stretched long and quiet. I practiced small gestures, how I walked, how I tilted my head, how I carried my hands. Every movement was monumental. Each glance in the mirror revealed subtle changes. The tilt of my cheekbones, the curve of my lips, the softness of my jawline. Aaliyah was emerging fully, but she was still fragile, still dependent on the careful attention I gave her. By nightfall, I was exhausted, my mind buzzing with emotions I couldn't name. I sat on my bed, brushing a strand of hair back, feeling the soft shimmer of the hair clip I had placed there hours ago. The reflection stared back at me, no longer tentative, no longer shy. She was there, fully, undeniably, waiting for acknowledgement. Mom knelt beside me, her hands warm against mine. "You're doing beautifully," she whispered. "Every step you take, you're becoming her, you're becoming yourself." I pressed my fingers against my lips, my heart racing. The journey ahead was unknown, terrifying, exhilarating. But one thing was certain, Aaliyah was no longer a secret. She existed, and for the first time I wanted to walk forward with her, fully, without shame, without fear, without hesitation. The morning sunlight poured through my bedroom window in long, golden streaks, casting a glow that made every surface shimmer and flicker. I lay in bed longer than usual, my body wrapped in the soft pastel blanket that had become strangely comforting over the past weeks. For a long time, I didn't move. I just listened, to the faint hum of the house waking, to the birds outside, to the slow rhythm of my own heartbeat. Aaliyah stirred within me even before I opened my eyes. I could feel her, that fragile, insistent presence that had grown stronger day by day. She was soft yet real, delicate yet undeniable. My reflection from yesterday's mirror still lingered in my mind. The subtle curve of my cheeks, the widening of my eyes, the soft curl of my hair falling across my shoulders. She was no longer an idea, a fantasy, or a tentative exploration. She was me, and yet, in so many ways, she was someone I was only just beginning to meet. Mom entered quietly, her presence steady and calm. She didn't rush me, didn't speak at first. She simply stood there, letting the room hold its silence, letting me adjust to the idea that today, like every day, would be a step closer to something I hadn't dared to imagine. "You're awake," she said softly, her voice carrying a warmth that wrapped around me. "Are you ready to meet her today?" I swallowed hard, my throat tight. I think so," I whispered. The words felt fragile, tentative, and yet entirely honest. Mom smiled gently and knelt beside the bed. "There's no pressure," she said. "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for, but I want to guide you, step by step, so you can see who she is and who you are." I nodded, my fingers brushing against the soft blanket, feeling the warmth that seemed to echo the fluttering uncertainty in my chest. Slowly, I reached for the dress laid neatly on the chair. The pink fabric glowed in the morning light, delicate and almost alive, calling to me in ways I could not name. I slid it over my head, letting the soft silk brush against my shoulders, fall around my legs. Every fold, every crease, every gentle sway felt monumental. Mom helped me adjust the fabric, her hands warm and careful. "Look at her," she said softly, nodding toward the mirror across the room. I turned and my breath caught. Aaliyah stared back at me, no longer tentative, no longer a whisper of possibility. She was alive. Her eyes were wide and questioning, her lips slightly parted in a silent plea for acknowledgement. The soft curls of my hair fell naturally around my shoulders, the subtle shimmer of the hairpin catching the light. I could see her in every line of my face, every movement, every subtle gesture. "Do you see her?" Mom whispered, kneeling beside me. "Yes," I breathed. The word felt monumental, almost sacred. "I see her." The day that followed became a careful exploration of what it meant to exist fully as Aaliyah. Mom guided me through small gestures, how to tilt my head, how to hold my hands, how to move in a way that felt natural and true to her. Each motion, each subtle adjustment, was like learning a new language, a language my body had forgotten, but that my mind was desperate to rediscover. We practiced expressions in the mirror, the smallest movements carrying immense weight. A gentle smile, the tilt of an eyebrow, the way my eyes softened when I looked at her, all of it felt monumental. I was learning to inhabit this identity, this presence, in a way that was deeply personal and intensely emotional. When we ventured outside for the first time, the world felt heavier, sharper, and more scrutinizing than ever. I dressed carefully in layers that felt soft and approachable, pastel tones that complemented my features, accessories that were subtle yet transformative. Every step toward the front door felt like stepping into a new life, a life that balanced fear with exhilaration, hesitation with possibility. The street was quiet, but every reflective surface seemed to hold a question. Who are you? Who do you want to be? I caught glimpses of Aaliyah in car windows, in the glossy reflections of shop displays. Each time my pulse quickened, my chest tightened, a strange thrill mingling with fear. This was no longer practice. This was reality. Mom walked beside me, calm and unhurried, her hand occasionally brushing mine. A reminder that I wasn't alone, that I had guidance, support, and permission to exist fully. The gentle warmth of her presence steadied me, even as the reflections of the world pressed against my consciousness, daring me to acknowledge myself openly. At the park, I hesitated before sitting on the bench. Children played nearby, couples strolled hand in hand, and a group of teenagers laughed loudly across the path. I felt exposed, as though every glance was a test I hadn't prepared for. But then, I caught Aaliyah's reflection in the pond at my feet. Her eyes, my eyes, stared back at me with insistence, daring me to exist fully, unapologetically. I took a deep breath and sat down, letting my hands rest lightly in my lap. The soft sway of my dress, the gentle curve of my shoulders, the warmth of Mom beside me, all combined to form a sense of grounding I hadn't known I could feel. Aaliyah was real. She existed, and I was beginning to inhabit her without fear. Hours passed in a blur of observation, careful gestures, and small interactions. Mom guided me as I explored how to respond to the world without hiding, how to meet my reflection in every surface without shrinking. Each step, each movement, each breath became a lesson in self-recognition. By the time we returned home, exhaustion and exhilaration mingled in a heavy, sweet weight. I stood in front of the mirror, brushing my hair back, feeling the shimmer of the hairpin catching the lamplight. Aaliyah was fully present now, not tentative, not fleeting, but real, alive, undeniable. Mom knelt beside me once more, her hands resting gently on mine. "You've done beautifully today," she whispered. "Every step, every breath, every glance you took in the mirror brought you closer to her and to yourself." I pressed my fingers to my lips, swallowing hard. The journey ahead was unknown, terrifying, and exhilarating all at once. But one certainty had settled deep within me. Aaliyah was no longer a secret, a fantasy, or a fleeting glimpse in the mirror. She existed, and I wanted to walk forward with her fully, openly, without fear. For the first time in my life, I didn't just see her in the mirror. I felt her in every heartbeat, every breath, every trembling motion of my hands. And in that overwhelming, fragile, exhilarating realization, I understood that nothing, no fear, no hesitation, no world outside could erase her. She was me, and I was her. The morning light filtered gently through the curtains, golden and soft, casting long streaks across the floorboards. I lay in bed, tracing the faint shadows with my eyes, my heart beating in a rhythm I could barely name. Today felt different, heavy yet strangely free. The quiet hum of the house seemed almost like it was holding its breath, waiting for me to step into the final threshold of my own becoming. I could feel Aaliyah fully awake inside me now. She was no longer fragile, hesitant, or whispering from the shadows of my consciousness. She was vivid, insistent, alive. Every subtle curve of my cheeks, the way my hair fell in soft waves, the delicate tilt of my shoulders, all of it felt natural, undeniable, and beautiful. The reflection I had avoided for so long now demanded recognition. Not just recognition, but acceptance. Mom entered the room quietly, her presence steady and calm, carrying a small, neatly folded outfit with pastel layers and delicate ribbons. She didn't say a word at first, just placed it gently on the chair and waited, her eyes warm, unwavering. I felt a flutter in my chest. Today she seemed to be asking me not just to wear the clothes, but to step fully into Aaliyah. No hesitation, no half measures. I reached for the outfit, brushing the fabric between my fingers. The silk and soft cotton felt alive, vibrant with possibility. As I slid it over my head, every sensation was magnified. The gentle brush of fabric against my shoulders, the sway of the skirt around my legs, the faint scent of the material. Aaliyah was no longer a reflection. She was my heartbeat, my breath, my presence in the world. Mom knelt beside me, adjusting a stray lock of hair, her hand warm against mine. "Are you ready to meet yourself fully?" she asked softly. I hesitated, my throat tight, my chest fluttering with anticipation and fear. I think so," I whispered. "You already are," she said. "You just need to see it for yourself." I turned toward the mirror and the sight stole my breath. There she was, Aaliyah fully present. Her eyes, wide and questioning yet confident, searched mine. Her lips parted slightly, a tentative smile playing at the edges. The soft waves of her hair shimmered under the morning light. The pastel outfit clung delicately to my form, emphasizing subtle curves I hadn't dared to acknowledge before. She was beautiful, not because someone had made her so, but because she was real, undeniable, and fully alive. I raised my hands, trembling slightly, and touched my face. Every line, every feature, every subtle expression was hers and mine at once. Tears pricked my eyes, not from fear, not from hesitation, but from a fierce, aching recognition. I had been hiding from her for years. I had been afraid of what she meant, of what she demanded, of how the world might react. And now I didn't have to hide. I didn't have to be afraid. Mom placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You've done this yourself," she said. "Every choice, every step, every glance in the mirror brought you closer to her. You didn't need me to make you. I only helped you see her." I swallowed hard, the weight of her words pressing against my chest. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I am her," I whispered. The words felt monumental, sacred, like a vow I had made to myself and finally kept. Mom smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "you are." The hours passed in a blur of quiet practice, small gestures, and soft exploration. I traced Aaliyah's movements in the mirror, the tilt of my head, the sway of my shoulders, the gentle curve of my hands. I practiced expressions, the smallest smiles, the subtle flicker of emotion that made her alive. Every motion reinforced her presence, every glance in the mirror confirmed that she wasn't a fleeting idea, but a reality I could finally inhabit. When we stepped outside for the first time fully dressed, fully Aaliyah, the world felt sharper, brighter, alive with possibility. The street, the shops, the people, they were unchanged, yet everything was new. Every reflective surface revealed her to me. A fleeting shimmer in the car window, a soft echo in a glass door, a quiet confirmation in the polished surface of a storefront. Each glimpse made my pulse race, my chest tighten, a strange thrill mingling with the lingering fear of exposure. Mom walked beside me, steady, warm, and unshakable. "Every step counts," she said softly. "Every breath, every glance, every moment of presence is part of her, and part of you." The park was quiet, except for the rustle of leaves and distant laughter. I found a bench and sat, the soft sway of my dress brushing my legs, the gentle curl of my hair falling naturally around my shoulders. I looked into the pond before me, and there she was, Aaliyah, full, vibrant, undeniable. No hesitation, no doubt, no fear, just presence, recognition, truth. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. My heartbeat slowed, and for the first time I felt a profound, encompassing peace. Aaliyah was here. She had always existed, quietly waiting, gently insisting. And now, fully, I could meet her, acknowledge her, love her. Not because the world demanded it, not because anyone else would approve, but because she was me. Mom knelt beside me, her hand brushing mine, warm and grounding. "You're extraordinary," she whispered. "Every step you took, every hesitation, every moment of courage, it all led you here. And she, Aaliyah, is yours to embrace." I opened my eyes. She looked back at me, alive, confident, fragile yet strong, real and undeniable. I smiled, feeling the first tremors of absolute, unshakable acceptance. The journey hadn't been easy. Fear had been constant. Doubt had been relentless, but she was real, and I was hers. For hours I sat by the pond, practicing small movements, exploring the subtle curves of expression, feeling every breath, every heartbeat, every whispered thought. Aaliyah was no longer tentative. She was fully me, fully alive, fully accepted. And I understood something I had never allowed myself to feel before: the world didn't matter. Approval, judgment, expectation, they were irrelevant. What mattered was truth, presence, recognition, love. By nightfall, when we returned home, I stood in front of the mirror one last time, brushing my hair back, feeling the faint shimmer of the hairpin catching the lamplight. Aaliyah stared back, steady and unwavering. She was here to stay, and so was I. Mom knelt beside me for the final moment of the day, her hand brushing my cheek gently. "You found her," she whispered, "and in finding her, you found yourself." I pressed my fingers to my lips, tears spilling freely. The journey ahead was unknown, yes, but for the first time I wasn't afraid. I had Aaliyah, and she had me. And in that quiet, trembling, radiant moment, I understood everything. I was no longer hiding. I was no longer running. I was fully, completely, undeniably Aaliyah.